Part 1. Opening Plenaries. Chapter 1. An Ancient Message Through Modern Means to a Postmodern Mind, by Ravi Zacharias. In April 1981, Daniel Yankelovich, a social analyst, wrote a very insightful article in Psychology Today. His principal thrust was to analyze how Americans were thinking about life and where we were headed should such ideas go uncriticized. It was a warning to the West. In his opening remarks, he defined the role and the imperative of culture. Quoting sociologist Daniel Bell, he said, "Culture is the effort to provide a coherent set of answers to the existentialist situations that confront all human beings in the passage of their lives." To define culture even in these terms may well be outdated now. Some months ago, I was lecturing at one of the universities in the country when a student stormed up to the microphone and bellowed, "Who told you culture is a search for coherence? Where do you get that idea from? This idea of coherence is a Western idea." I replied by reminding her that all I had done in that instance was to present a sociologist's definition that culture sought coherence. "Ah, words, just words," she shouted back. "Let me ask you this then," I pleaded. "Do you want my answer to be coherent?" Some laughter rippled through the auditorium. She herself was stymied for a few moments. "But that's language, isn't it?" she retorted. I asked her if language has anything to do with reality. Must words not point to a referent? If you are seeking an answer that must be coherent, but culture itself does not have to be, from whence do you get this disjunction? One could sense the turmoil within her. Indeed, later on I was told that this individual was a rather outspoken person whose lifestyle was radically aberrant from the normal. Her struggle for coherence was rooted in her very physiological dissonance. This student may well be the quintessential postmodernist. Our bodies and proclivities are defining our reason for being. That is how intense I believe this struggle is becoming. Friedrich Nietzsche and Michel Foucault, both brilliant yet tragic figures, can be seen as the definitive bookends of the 20th century. Foucault, of course, was a leading French intellectual who, owing to a very promiscuous life, died of AIDS at the age of 58. He was a lover of the writings of Nietzsche, who, ironically, had died at age 54 in the wake of his pitiful bout with venereal disease and insanity. So even as we look for our cultural moorings and try to understand the radical shifts that have disrupted the shared meanings of the past, attempting a coherent answer becomes a prohibitive challenge. Walter Truett Anderson humorously gives us an insight into this in his book, Reality Isn't What It Used to Be. He reflects on our predicament by presenting an analogy from baseball. A pre-modern baseball umpire would have said something like this: "There's balls and there's strikes, and I call them as they are." The modernist would have said, "There's balls and there's strikes, and I call them as I see 'em." And the postmodernist umpire would say, "They ain't nothing until I call 'em." In brief, all reality is subject-dependent. The postmodernist frames reality by naming aspects at his or her whim. You and I have in some ways been so influenced by this culture that we too cannot get ourselves completely outside of it. We are locked into this postmodern mindset, or at least some elements of it. Perhaps the most radically affected of all are our children. If you talk to your teenager after a movie that your son or daughter wanted you to see, you suddenly hear comments such as, "I'm sorry, Dad, but I hadn't noticed all the bad language until you were sitting next to me." It is almost as if they live in that world, and they don't even notice it anymore until somehow someone with a counter perspective is sitting next to them. And then they mutter, "Uh-oh, I've blown this one." The disorientation is thus double-edged, both external and internal. Reality is redefined, and our own thinking is unwittingly reshaped. The Century of Change. How did we get where we are today? I perceive that 5 major shifts in this century have brought us to where we are, no doubt.